The fluorescent lights of Memorial Hospital's emergency wing flickered at 2:47 a.m., casting shadows across the face of 24-year-old Emma Rodriguez as she steadied herself against the nurse's station. Her third consecutive double shift had drained every ounce of energy from her body, but the mountain of student loan debt sitting on her shoulders wouldn't let her rest. She'd eaten nothing but vending machine crackers in the last 12 hours. Her worn scrubs hung loose on her thinning frame, and the soles of her second-hand shoes had worn so thin she could feel every crack in the hospital's linoleum floor. Yet when the automatic doors burst open and she saw an elderly woman stumble forward, clutching her chest, Emma's exhaustion evaporated in an instant. Because that's what nurses do. They show up, they care, and they save lives, even when their own lives are falling apart. Emma's feet moved before her mind could process the scene. The woman, perhaps in her 70s, with silver hair elegantly styled despite the late hour, was dressed in a tailored coat that spoke of wealth, the kind Emma had only seen in magazine spreads. But money meant nothing when someone was gasping for air. The woman's knees buckled, and Emma caught her just before she hit the cold hospital floor, her arms wrapping around the stranger's trembling body with practiced efficiency. "I've got you," Emma whispered, lowering the woman gently onto a nearby wheelchair she'd kicked into position. "You're safe now. I'm Emma, and I'm going to take care of you." The woman's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and filled with fear. Her lips moved, forming words that wouldn't come. Emma checked her pulse, rapid and irregular, and immediately called for assistance while simultaneously assessing her patient. Years of training kicked in, but so did something deeper, genuine compassion. "Don't try to talk," Emma said softly, brushing a strand of silver hair from the woman's clammy forehead. "Just breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. You're doing great." The ER was understaffed that night, as it had been for months. Budget cuts had forced the hospital to reduce nursing staff, leaving the remaining nurses to carry impossible loads. Emma had watched 3 of her colleagues quit in the past month alone, unable to sustain the physical and emotional toll. But Emma couldn't afford to quit, not with her mother's medical bills piling up back in their cramped apartment in Queens, not with her younger brother counting on her to help him get through college. Dr. Patterson arrived within minutes, but Emma had already started an IV line and gathered the woman's vital signs. "Possible cardiac event," Emma reported crisply, her professionalism masking her exhaustion. "Blood pressure 160/95, heart rate 112, respirations shallow. She hasn't been able to tell me her name yet." As Dr. Patterson took over the immediate medical assessment, Emma stayed by the woman's side, holding her hand. It was a small gesture, one that wasn't technically required. But Emma had learned long ago that healing involved more than just medicine. It required human connection. "You're in good hands," Emma assured her, squeezing gently. "Dr. Patterson is excellent. We're going to figure out what's happening and get you feeling better." The woman's grip tightened around Emma's fingers. Her eyes locked on the young nurse's face, as if she were a lifeline in a storm. In that moment, despite the chaos of the ER around them, there existed only this connection. Between 2 souls, one fighting to stay conscious, the other fighting to keep her there. Tests were ordered, and the woman was moved to a more private examination room. Emma should have returned to her other duties. There were patients waiting, charts to update, medications to distribute. But something kept her rooted to this stranger's side. Maybe it was the way the woman's hand trembled in hers. Or maybe it was the profound loneliness Emma recognized in those frightened eyes. She'd seen that same look in her own mother's eyes during her cancer treatments. "You remind me of my daughter," the woman finally whispered, her voice hoarse but clearer now. "She would have been about your age." Emma's heart clenched. Would have been. Past tense. She'd heard countless stories of loss in her years of nursing, but they never got easier. "Tell me about her," Emma said gently, pulling up a chair despite her aching legs. "If you want to, that is." The woman's name was Catherine Hartwell, Emma learned, and her daughter Sarah had died in a car accident 15 years ago. Sarah had wanted to be a nurse, just like Emma. As Catherine talked, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks, Emma listened with her whole heart, offering tissues and comfort and the kind of presence that couldn't be taught in any nursing school. "I'm so sorry," Emma said, her own eyes misting. I'm sure she would have been an incredible nurse, and I'm sure she'd be so proud of the strong woman you are for getting through that loss. Catherine squeezed Emma's hand. Do you have family? Emma smiled, though it didn't quite reach her tired eyes. My mom. She's a fighter, beat cancer last year. And my little brother Miguel. He's 17, wants to be an engineer. I'm working these extra shifts to help with his college fund. You're supporting them alone? Catherine asked, her eyes sharp despite her weakened state. Our dad left when Miguel was 5, Emma explained, then immediately felt embarrassed for sharing so much. She usually kept her personal life separate from work. Sorry, you don't need to hear about all that. Let's focus on you. But Catherine wouldn't let it go. Over the next several hours, as tests came back showing that Catherine had experienced severe dehydration and an arrhythmia episode rather than a heart attack, the two women talked. Catherine learned about Emma's struggles, the $60,000 student debt, the 12-hour shifts, the apartment with peeling paint, and a landlord who refused to fix the broken heating system. Emma learned that Catherine lived in a penthouse on Fifth Avenue, that Shed built a successful company from nothing, and that despite her wealth, Shed been profoundly lonely since her daughter's death. You have a gift, Catherine told Emma as dawn began to break. Through the hospital windows, not just the medical knowledge, but the compassion that can't be taught. Emma blushed. I just care about people. That's all. That's everything, Catherine corrected. Dr. Patterson cleared Catherine for discharge around 7 a.m. prescribing medication and follow-up appointments. Emma's shift had technically ended an hour ago, but she stayed to ensure Catherine had a safe way home. When Catherine insisted on calling her driver, Emma waited with her, chatting easily like they were old friends rather than strangers who'd met only hours before. As the black town car pulled up to the hospital entrance, Catherine turned to Emma. Thank you for saving my life tonight. You're very welcome, Emma said warmly. Please take care of yourself, Catherine, and remember, take those medications with food. Stay hydrated and don't skip that cardiology appointment next week. Catherine smiled, then reached into her purse. She pulled out a business card and pressed it into Emma's hand. If you ever need anything at all, please call me. Emma glanced at the card. Catherine Hartwell, CEO, Hartwell Industries. Words didn't fully register in her exhausted brain. She pocketed the card politely, assuming it was just a grateful patience gesture, never intending to actually use it. 3 weeks later, Emma's world crumbled. The hospital announced more budget cuts. Despite her excellent record and dedication, Emma was laid off last. Hired first, fired. The news came on the same day her landlord served an eviction notice for being 2 months behind on rent, and her mother's cancer returned, requiring treatment their insurance wouldn't fully cover. Emma sat in her tiny apartment that night, surrounded by bills she couldn't pay, and finally let herself cry. Shed worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and it still wasn't enough. She was drowning, and there was no lifeline in sight. Then she remembered the business card. With trembling hands, she called the number, expecting nothing. Wealthy people made kind gestures all the time. That meant nothing. But Catherine answered on the second ring. Emma, Catherine's voice filled with warmth. I've been hoping you'd call. Through tears, Emma explained everything. Job loss, the eviction, her mother's illness. She hated asking for help, hated feeling like a charity case, but she was desperate. Come to my office tomorrow morning, Catherine said firmly. 10 o'clock. And Emma, everything is going to be okay. The next morning, Emma arrived at the gleaming Hartwell Industries tower in Manhattan, feeling utterly out of place in her thrift store interview outfit. Catherine's assistant escorted her to the top floor, where Catherine waited in an office with views that stretched across the entire city. But Catherine wasn't alone. A man in his 40s, handsome in an intimidating way, stood beside her desk. His expression was cold, suspicious. This is my son, Jonathan, Catherine introduced. He's the CFO of Hartwell Industries. Jonathan's eyes swept over Emma with barely concealed disdain. Mother, surely you're not serious about this. Completely serious, Catherine said coolly. Emma's stomach dropped. I'm sorry, serious about what? Catherine smiled, the same warm smile she'd given Emma that night in the hospital. Emma, I'd like to offer you a position as Director of Corporate Healthcare Initiatives at Hartwell Industries. 6-figure salary, full benefits, housing allowance, and a signing bonus that should cover your mother's medical expenses and your brother's first 2 years of college. Emma's knees went weak. I don't understand. I'm a nurse, not a corporate executive. I don't have any business experience. You have something far more valuable, Catherine said. You have genuine compassion and the ability to see people, really see them. That night in the hospital, you didn't see a wealthy woman who could help your career. You saw a frightened person who needed comfort. You stayed with me not because you had to, but because you cared. That's the kind of person I want leading my company's healthcare programs. Jonathan scoffed. Mother, you're being emotional and irrational. We can't hire someone based on sentiment. She has no qualifications for this position. Catherine's eyes flashed with steel. I built this company on my instincts about people, Jonathan. Emma has exactly what this role needs. And I'll remind you that I'm still the CEO and this is my decision. Emma's mind reeled. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. But Catherine's expression was earnest, hopeful even. And Emma realized this wasn't just about business. Catherine was offering her a chance at a life she'd never dared dream of. Yes, but she was also asking Emma to be part of something meaningful. I would be honored, Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. I promise I won't let you down. Catherine stood and embraced her. You already haven't. You saved my life that night. Emma, not just medically, but in ways you can't imagine. You reminded me why I started this company in the first place, to help people. And now you're going to help me remember that every single day.